Hey guys, welcome to episode number 15 of Suits and Sports. And joining us today, we have the founder and managing director of a prominent organization called Women in Sport. And it's Miss Vaidehi Vaidya. Hi, ma'am. How are you today?
I am fine. I hope you all are also safe and getting ready to get vaccinated so that you can, carry on with your sports business as usual. But I'm happy to be part of this, you know, this episode um, because we all share one love, which is sports. So yeah, always happy to be here.
And also thank you, ma'am, for your time that you had taken out a small amount of your time and you came to us. Also, once again, thank you from the team. And also, yeah, just before you join with us, we have a discussion regarding the vaccination and all. So, ma'am, first of all, we want to forget this thing of the vaccination. We want to talk about your concept, like women in schools, right? So how do you came to about this concept of women in schools? What is the reason behind that?
It's a fairly simple reason and a selfish one, to be honest. When I did my football industries MBA from UK, Liverpool University, I was actually one of the few ones. I was the first Indian to graduate from that course, Indian woman. And naturally, I was interested in women's sports and women's football. And as I graduated, I got my job. I started working in sports, but at some point of time, I felt the need to connect with other women as I was working in sports to just for guidance, to understand how they think, to get some information on their work profiles and get some guidance, to be honest. And at that point of time, I was searching for an organization, especially in India, because I was based in India, although I was working in Asia primarily, but I was based in India. And I was searching for an organization which could connect me to such women. And I was searching and searching, but I could not find any. And most of the organizations were not women sports centric. They were, of course, supporting women in general, but not sports centric. So I decided, okay, if there isn't one, why don't I start one? And Women in Sport India basically started as an online forum to support and connect with other women in sports, specifically. In 2015, I started it. And then as it grew, I started connecting with other women. I started sharing, a lot of things, to be honest, not just things related to sports, but, hobbies, interests, and women started supporting each other, and that's how it grew over the years. I also realized the importance of it. I Although I hadn't thought of it when I started it, it was just to connect with other women. I slowly over the years started realizing how important the forum is for other women in sport, because the percentage of women in sport is less even today in the 21st century, and we need more diversity. We need equality more than diversity. That is diversity, but we need more equality in sports now. And I started realizing how important the forum is for that. And in 2020, I registered my forum as a company just before we went into lockdown. So I'm yet to explore the out of lockdown business, to be honest, because whatever I have done so far is in lockdown. And that's where I am now. I'm developing a lot of programs for women specifically. I'm trying to bring them into the top tier of sports where they can become one of the decision makers. They can become one of the leaders, because we need that in sports. Because it's for longest time, sports has been one dimensional, and it has been from a perspective of a man. And we need to bring in the second dimension, the third dimension also to the sport, in terms of LGBTQ community. So I'm a big believer of equality, and I'm also a big believer of practical thinking. So I'm combining both and bringing various programs, activities. I'm bringing the knowledge, the top tier knowledge to, you know, all the women who want to get into sports. So that's where I am, and I'm happy that I started it, and I'm happy about where it is going now.
Great, ma'am. Like, thank you for sharing the journey in regard with how you started your organization. Ma'am, so once again, you had just mentioned as to how the percentage of women who participate and how they're involved is considerably less compared to the men. So
Yeah.
if you notice right now, I'm giving the example of football. If you notice, obviously the men's circuit is a lot bigger when it comes to the number of tournaments and the number of teams and the fan following. But if you notice, recently we have two women from India. First, Bala Devi, who's doing exceptional in with Rangers, and we also have Aditi Chauhan right now, which I feel is an achievement because being a goalkeeper to get selected by a European club is a big thing. So if you do you think the women are being like entirely neglected? Because if you notice, not many men also from India have gotten like, you know, they've budded, grown in India, and then gotten selected by a European country for football. So do you think that happens?
I think I mean, we have had a few players, men, football
Mhm.
players who have gone out and played for, you know, foreign clubs. But I think Bala is an excellent example of how you know, women can grow in football, because I think she's, compared to all the other players, she is a prime example of playing in the first 11. Because I think even the men, although they went to foreign clubs, they were not one of the starting 11s, right? So I think she is prime example for men and women, you know, because she's playing in starting 11, she's scoring goals. I think she's one of the top players. If you remember, there was a vote, AFC conducted a vote for, you know, if you have come across it, and she won, I think. She was leading, and she was the only woman, and all the other were men. So I think she's doing an amazing job of bridging the gap between the difference between men's football and women's football. She is a football player. It doesn't matter whether she's a woman or a man. So I think that fantastic job. I applaud Bala Devi, and the way she's conducting herself, the way she's playing with Rangers. And I do give a due credit to, you know, Bengaluru FC, who facilitated the whole deal. And that is a you know, men's club. So if you know, we come together, I think we can reach you know, higher in football in general. Sport doesn't have a gender, right? Sport, we decide that there are genders. Sports itself is a genderless entity. So if we come together and look at football as football rather than men's football or women's football, that gap can be bridged. And Bala is a prime example of that. She's doing phenomenal job in sports, and she's also encouraging a lot of young football players, female football players, right? So they have, this wasn't there before 5-6 years back,
Mhm.
right? They can now dream of playing with one of the best clubs in the world. um, they can dream of, you know, being a football player professionally. So that's I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm really happy that she's setting that example for not just, you know, women, but also other players, like boys, girls, both equally. I'm really happy that she's doing that, for sure. And coming to, you know, neglecting women's football, yes, yeah, I mean, but I'll tell you what, football wasn't there 10 years back, right? In India, it wasn't on the map, period. It has grown in last what, 5-6 years probably. I mean, I League was there, of course, but you know, in terms of exponential growth in the sport,
Mhm.
it started when probably ISL started. You know, it put us on the global map. uh, in some way. So the growth has been recent, and it's a trend that, when a sport starts developing in a country, men's sports get more attention. Always. It's there. We can't ignore it. We can't give excuses for it. It is what it is. But I think the growth that women's football has seen over the years has also been there, but the only problem is it hasn't been marketed well. So it's less about whether they are doing something or not. It's more about how you market it. I read an article recently in Economic Times where the guy who wrote the article, it was about cricket, it was about women's cricket. The guy who wrote the article said, we always complain about women's sports getting less attention, eyeballs, even though they are achieving, phenomenal things. The main problem is not that, they are not achieving anything, or, federation isn't, supporting them. It's about how you cash in that achievement, how you market it well, how you make sure that you get the sponsorships and viewerships out of that achievements. I think their achievements are not being explored enough. That's what I think. If that has, if we start doing that, I think a lot of things will change. We need to market and, cash in the achievements from the commercial aspect. We need to market them. We need to, women's cricket team reach the finals. How much of that achievement, we all know that they reach finals, all of us. How much of that achievement has been marketed? How much of that achievement has been converted into getting sponsorship? I think that is required for all women's sports, not just football or not just cricket. I think women are at an international level. Women are, at much higher state or a much higher stage than men's sports in most of the sports. Exception is cricket. But we need to use that to get more money into women's sports. Unless we do that, we are always going to complain, oh, there is no viewership, there's no money, there's no sponsorship, right? So we need to change the perspective of looking at sports, and we need to make it more professional and commercial. Once we start doing that, automatically we will understand the requirement of marketing, the requirement of professionalism, the requirement of commercial engagements. And we need to prove it to the brands and the sponsors that, okay, we are doing this, and we are going to market it. So yeah, I mean, that's what my point of view is about women's sports in general, not just for women's football, but in general about women's sports. And it doesn't take a lot of budget, to be honest, to market things today. Digital marketing is fairly cheap. Start with that. What are we doing about under 17 football World Cup that is coming in India? Apart from the footballing community, nobody else knows about it. Digital campaign in like COVID era, where people are not actually going out, people are not, attending events. Digital marketing campaigns can play a big role, and it doesn't take a lot of budget to do that, right? So why are we not doing it then? That's my question. I think we lack in marketing when it comes to women's sports, period. That's my bottom line. That's my assessment. We need to think more seriously about marketing women's sports and, push it in front of people. And then sponsorship will come, I think.
So, ma'am, first of all, I'm really sorry for this noise, Calcutta's traffic. So, yeah, you are absolutely true on that fact. But yeah, even ma'am, don't you think the society is also society is also one of the problem? Because recently I was doing one project, right? So when I was saying the project was regarding the governance in sports, right? So when I was doing the project, I have found out except India, most of the well-known world organization has women in their body, right? Whatever, if you see in India, 90% is male, only 10, less than 5% will be a woman, right? One out of, if there's 90 men will be there, then all something around one woman will be there, right? But if you see in the different other countries, like for example, take Australia, even they have a equal discrimination, like equality is there, right? The governing policy. Even you are for UK, I have also certain time in UK. We have seen that part also, right? Like women and men haven't given the equal opportunity, right? They are practicing in the same way. What the woman said, if a woman is taking 5 kilos dumbbell, a man is also using a 5 kilo dumbbell. But don't you think the society itself is a problem? For example, I'm taking another example. Like I was going through the story, like mythological, historical part. Like back in 686 BC, when you are there, Olympic was there. So before Olympic, it came like there was one game which is started by this Olympic, like that time in Greece, which is like Heron's game. So it was just to dedicate the goddess Hera, and only female was athletes should be participating in that game. That was the main motive, like main factor of that Heron's game. Then yeah, even if 686 BC, women have been given the opportunity. Then suddenly after the Middle Age, the voting rights, education right has taken away from the female, and then the colonization came in India. So don't you think like even in our Indian mythology, we have seen many women warriors are there, right? I'm not taking the Jhansi Ki Rani, I'm taking the mythology characters. We have seen the goddess and all, but don't you think the society that we haven't came out from that society itself, that societal view itself?
Okay, I have had this, I mean, I have answered this question many times, or I have been asked this question many times. I have a very different opinion about India. Okay, we as a country cannot compare ourselves with other countries. We are a completely new case study. The reason being, first of all, we are a developing country. We have other important problems to face and tackle than sports. Sports right now is not and should not be at the top of our list of development. I'm sorry, but that's the case. We have education, we have health and medical, we have sanitization, so all these problems, all these issues come at the top of the list of whatever the government is doing. Sports comes later, point number one. So we cannot compare our country with other countries. Point number two, our society, to be honest, is more open to women being in the leadership position than other countries. And I'll give you a prime example of this. Indira Gandhi has been there, like she has been the Prime Minister of India before all these Western countries even had their prime minister, female prime minister. A lot of them don't have female prime minister, including one of the so-called developed countries like US. Okay, so we have respected women in authority for a long time. Third thing, independent for only 70 years, and that's not a lot of time to be independent. So we need, of course, our society needs a lot of change, and that is happening today. A lot of people have changed their perspective about women's sports in general. So we often have this habit of blaming our own country. I don't. I believe what we are doing in sports is going in the right direction, to be honest. Government is doing a lot of things. So if you ask a lot of athletes today, they will say that they receive anything and everything that they need, including women athletes. Our government, our federations, I'll not talk much about federations, but our government is supporting women athletes a lot. They don't discriminate between gender. They look at our medal prospects and they support the athlete. And, I think that parents are supporting our daughters, right? So there is a change in the society for sure. We need to stop blaming our country and need to look at what we as an individual doing for the betterment of women's sports. Because government cannot do everything. They have more important things to look at. They have to get people up from the poverty line first. I think that is more important. They need to look at the health issues that people are facing, the medical issues that people are facing. They need to look at cleaning up the society. I think that is more important than sports at any point of time. So we need private players. We need more private or corporate organizations to come and support sports and women's sports in general. So my personal opinion is we need to stop blaming the society and India, because India is a different case altogether. We have 1.3 billion population. that government and in general, all of us need to look at. So we are going to naturally prioritize. And I think change is coming, right? We can't stay in one stage forever. People will have to change. People are changing, but we have to give them some time. And one of the best example of this is the Cricket World Cup match, right? So, we or PV Sindhu match for that matter, 35 million people watched that final of Olympics. That's not a small amount. And a T20 World Cup of women's cricket, or in general World Cup of women's cricket, people saw those matches, right? The stadium was full. So change is coming. We just need to give our society and government some time. Nothing can happen overnight, but I have seen it change exponentially, and it changed over the last 6 or 7 years. So yeah, I don't think we should say anything wrong, or anything that would blame our country, especially on a global platform. It should not, because the other thing to look at, there are a lot of people who are working in women's sports who are doing phenomenal things. When we blame our country and our society, we ultimately also blame them, and that's disrespectful in my opinion. So let's not play this blame game, or let's not put anybody on the pedestal saying that our society is not doing anything. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who are supporting women's sports. There are a lot of people, men, who are coming ahead and supporting women. I get messages daily from men who want to support my organization or me in any way they can. And I can literally take 100 names at least. So that is my opinion. I never blame our society. I never blame our government. I only look at what I can do as an individual and what my organization can do. Yes, there are problems, but we will get over it. We will find solutions either over it or around it. So yeah, that's my point of view. We can blame anybody we want, but that's not going to help us change, or that's not going to make anything happen. And the other thing is, we need to, if you want to change anything, if you want to increase the number of leaders or decision makers at boards or top level committees, that has to happen through policy changes. So we can't, I mean, society will accept the change if we bring it through policy. That's my opinion. I'm working on it. I'm working with people to make sure that we bring about that change. Yes, we need more women at top level. We need equality, like I said, but it has to happen at a policy level. It cannot happen at a society level. It should not, because yeah, I mean, it's how we have 1.4 billion people. How many people are you going to convince to make it happen? Doesn't. So it has to happen at the policy level. And I mean, it's all our job to make sure that we do that. We make sure we reach, the right people at the right time in the government also. So yeah, I mean, that's my opinion, but I don't know what you think about it, but yeah.
So it's a view one of that. So we have no contradict on that. But I have another question for you. It's a little bit like personal type of question. Like you worked regarding football, but as per my knowledge, you were an athlete, which was like you were into taekwondo. So suddenly, how did this happen? Like from taekwondo to football?
I was a taekwondo player for almost 9 years or so. And I was playing football till first year of my engineering. So that is when I actually got introduced to football. When I was doing my engineering, we had a couple of boys teams for our college, and that's when I was, first introduced to football, and I just, I found it very interesting, and I asked them if I can, kick about with them, and they said yes. So I started playing with the boys, and I really loved it. There was no particular reason for me to start playing football. I just, I've always loved sports in general, not one particular sport. I have played taekwondo, I have done swimming, I've attended summer camp for cricket, I've played badminton. So it wasn't just one sport that I loved. I just loved sports in general. So I found it very interesting, and I started playing with them, and then just fell in love with the sport, and started playing for a local club. And yeah, that's when I decided I want to do something in football. So there wasn't a particular reason why I started playing football or I got into football. Um, but that transition was very natural, and to be honest, my taekwondo skills actually helped me in playing football, because for taekwondo you need super fast reflexes, right? And that was very, very useful when I started playing football. I was fast, I had great reflexes, and that made me a good player. So I always encourage cross training. I always tell people, okay, don't just train in one sport, but also train in a sport which will aid you to become better in your main sport. So yeah, I mean, that has been my experience with
So
no
are you
particular
the
reason.
ladies Altan of your college
Oh
team?
no. Oh God, no. No. He's a terrific player, and I'm sure that there are a lot of female footballers in India who are much better than me. And you will be able to see that if you go to like IWL qualifiers or IWL, you will be able to see that there are just phenomenal female footballers in India. I
The
am
reason
nowhere
I
close to.
mentioned the reason I mentioned this because he was also a Taekwondo player, right? From there he came, he changed into footballer. Then he
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
that
yeah.
a Taekwondo
Yeah,
skill
yeah,
came
I
into
know,
football.
but yeah, obviously he's playing at a much higher level. I don't fit into that category for sure.
So, ma'am, do you have any concluding remarks, ma'am, to give to all, not just like to every aspiring sports professional out there?
The only thing that I would like to say is any kind of knowledge should be welcome, whether you're going in sports law or sports management or sports sciences. You should know the other fields also. Because sports is an overlapping field. You need to know anything and everything, whether you are working in sports science or law or management, doesn't matter. I encourage that. And the second thing that I always tell people is to be curious about things. You know, sports is a very closed community, and the opportunities will come faster to those who are more curious, who ask more questions. And it's not just about job for them, right? It's about learning, and it is about getting in touch with different people. And the third thing that I would definitely emphasize on is network. It's never too early to network, and it takes a lot of time to get in touch with the right people. So start as soon as possible and get in touch with as many people as possible. You never know who is going to help you in future. And it's always good to know people in sports industry, because like I said, it's a very small industry and everybody knows everybody. So opportunities will come to you only if you are in that inner circle of people. So yeah, I mean, three things. But other than that, enjoy your journey. Enjoy sports, because you are in sports because you love it, right? So enjoy it as much as possible. Yeah, those are my parting remarks, maybe.
Well, ma'am, so thank you so much for those lovely words. So once again, on behalf of Global Sports Policy Review, I would like to thank you so much for taking time off your schedule and coming to this episode of Suits and Sports and sharing your knowledge and your perspectives in regard with sports. It was a really interesting session. Subhrajit sir, would you like to say anything else?
I like to say many things, but because this noise of the day, like I can't. So once again, man, I have to be a little bit louder now. Thank you for your time once again. That's Ryan mentioned, and hopefully we will once again we will meet together in some conference, maybe someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to that happening soon. And thank you so much for having me. This was a fun conversation. And I loved being here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you even more after this. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much, guys. Like, share, and subscribe.